Hello, everybody. This is Kobe Rex. I'm really excited today because I get to continue our series on all of the ways to win with multiple parts of your purchase process. So here we go. Okay. So all the other things we've talked about, I've left everybody's got to play a little bit. You got the realtors got to play, the title got to play, the sellers got to play. This episode is the relationship between me and you as the buyer and the lender on this one. We will bring the sellers over here and probably the realtor over in a little bit, but we're going to talk about real quick because we're talking about that one time during your process where you're probably asking me, what is my rate? So if you go back and watch the 6 places where you can find wealth in the buying process, please go back to that and you can find it. But now we're going to talk about, let's assume that you watched my video and you know that there's a lot of different places on my chart. I've locked in on that specific day, but I can do lots of different rate options. So let's explain rate options. Okay, so typically when you go into a loan and you get into the closing table, you probably have some processing and underwriting fees. You got your title fees. You have to do escrows for, meaning you have to basically put this big account that's going to take care of your taxes and insurance throughout the year. So to minimize that, which is called par, is going to come in at like this specific number. It could come in at any number. So basically what ends up happening is, let's say that you want to have a lower rate for the entire time of your mortgage. You can pay what are called points. So there's a certain percentage of the loan amount. 1 point means 1% of the loan amount. So $4,000 mortgage, $4,000 for a point. So sometimes that'll get you like an 1/8 or a quarter or a 3/8. Really just depends on the situation. It can be good, and there's definitely some break evens that next time it's going to be I'm going to call it like chart class or something, because we're going to spend a lot of time going and diving through, hey, this is specifically how it would make sense to possibly do points versus a buy down. Okay. So now we've talked about what makes sense. And as I've said also in my last video, is that if you also want to take a slightly higher rate, we can actually get a little bit extra money to help you with closing costs. So sometimes people need to do that. And as I said in step 6, when we're all hanging out a title, sometimes when I'm balancing, I do need a little bit of extra room too. So I'll have to lower that number anyway. So here's what I would recommend in terms of, now we're going to magically invite back both the seller and also the realtors, because there's this thing called the buy downs. So basically buy downs are temporary. So whether there's a 1-0, meaning for 1 year, you buy it down 1%. So if the rate going right now is 7%, that 1 year you have to pay 6, and then the rest of the years you have 7. What ends up happening to make this happen is there gets an escrow account collected, which is why I asked for the realtors, or the lender can sometimes provide that, or the realtors are going to have to provide to that pot. Notice I said the buyers cannot they cannot contribute to that pot. There has to be no cost to the buyer for a buy down. But basically it allows it to, there's either a 1 year, a 2-year option where it goes 2% the first year, 1% the second year. And then there's a 3-2-1, which, as you can guess, 3% lower the first year, 2% lower the second year, 1% lower the third, and then back to the normal after that. Why would you want to do that? If you expect that interest rates are going to go down, this offers you a way to basically say, hey, you can take whatever money you didn't use from the buy down, and you can if the interest rates go down later, you can lock it at that lower rate, and we can reduce the principal that you now have to pay, because most of the time when you do refinance, you have to re-escrow and you have to put in title fees and lending fees. So if you're thinking rates are going down and it's in a high interest rate environment, sometimes that can help a little bit. So what we've covered today is that if you want to permanently buy down your rate a little bit, so that way it's a little bit lower using points, you can do that. And if you also want to do a temporary, which is actually provided not by you, but either the buyer or seller, by the seller through concessions, or the realtors or the lender can contribute to it, but the buyer cannot contribute to it. But basically, that sometimes hedges whenever there's a high cost environment where the rates are a little bit higher than what it might have been, and you're expecting that the rates are going to go down. So we have just finished part 3. So what we're going to do next is that next week we're going to go through a specific scenario with an entry-level buyer looking to buy like a $350,000 house and how this would work out for them. So as always, if you'd like to start the process of buying a home on the lending side, always go to my link down below, koberex1.flowify.com. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys next week for the training. Have a great one.